4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And I'm Lovey. For those of you that are new to the podcast, or even those of you that have been around, this is a podcast for all things marriage. We talk about a lot of different things. And if you don't know, we've been married for 28 plus years.
Right.
And it started off a little rocky.
Very rocky.
Yeah. Before we actually got married, I got stabbed by her ex-boyfriend through the heart.
And we made it through that. And 4 years later, to the date of our 4-year anniversary at Morton's Steakhouse, I asked for a divorce.
That she did. You know, somewhere between like the cream spinach and the potatoes,
We didn't eat
it was like
cream.
celebrating our anniversary. She said, "Oh, by the way, I want a divorce."
I didn't say it like that.
It was kind of like that.
It was.
You know, so we've been through some things. So we talk about that. We decided to become the couple that we needed when we were going through all of that drama. But the good news is, and
We're still here.
yeah, spoiler alert, we're still married. And so we like to talk about that, and we bring subject matter experts as well as share some of our own stories, things that we're going through, that we've gone through. Unfortunately, there have been other ups and downs, major tragedies, as well as major triumphs that we've gone through. And we're very transparent. We share that with you. We also bring other couples from a variety of different backgrounds and storylines, and they share their stories. And hopefully it adds value to your backgrounds as well and lets you kind of know you're not alone.
Yeah,
We all go through it.
exactly. But right now, what we want you to do is go to marriedintocrazy.com and subscribe and leave a comment about the show wherever you're listening or watching. And, you know, there's different tabs on there. If you're looking for, like, kind of like Lovey said earlier, we are that couple that we needed when we were going through our thing. So if you are in need of some coaching, here we are.
Yep, definitely. So go there, take a look. Definitely. We really love to actually help and coach people, either couple to couple or what have you. There's a lot of tabs that are there, but definitely our bread and butter are basically working with other couples, but there's a variety of ways in which we do that. And definitely go ahead and hit subscribe and like us and leave a comment wherever you're listening and or watching. And so let's get into it.
I just got to say this. He just mansplained everything that I just said.
Because you said go to marriedintocrazy.com and subscribe. You can't subscribe there.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
See, some things need some
But you
mansplaining.
just have to know.
Hey,
Nothing ever needs to be mansplained.
I'm just saying.
Anyway,
I'm just saying.
anyway. So,
you know, so look, there are people that have been over the, I don't know, period of 300 plus episodes that have asked us, you know, hey, when are you going to tell your story again about how everything happened? You know, because we did mention about how I got stabbed and it was through the heart and all of that. And I just realized that we really haven't gotten into the story, not since the early days, like episode 2. And so something funny, well, it wasn't really funny, but something happened recently. I think you should.
So we're in conversation with another couple, and you know, people look at us. We have this thing that we like to say. You know, what chapter that we're on right now, right? People look at us and they think, oh, well, you guys have never had any. Look at y'all. You know, you got the house, you have the kids, and careers, and you know, blah blah blah, looking at all the material things, but not really realizing that there were things that we had to overcome, just like Lovey kind of talked about a little bit. So I think, like you said, now is an appropriate time to just kind of talk about that, and I hope the people who thought that we didn't go through anything are listening.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not like we do the whole Instagram thing, like, you know, like we're living our Insta lives and putting snapshots out there. And I think that anybody you meet has a story to tell.
Yeah.
And what you see isn't necessarily the full story.
Nope.
I mean, to look at us, you wouldn't know. More times than not, you would not know that we lost our eldest child 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago.
Almost 2 years ago. Yeah.
And we still struggle through that. I still go through counseling as a result of that. I see my therapist almost every week when we have the opportunity. You wouldn't know that by seeing me. You wouldn't know.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, you wouldn't. I mean, anyway, there's a lot of things you just wouldn't know because we're so intent on living our lives and continuing to pour into other people and trying to live it to the fullest. But there's behind every person you see, behind every couple you see, there is a story. So take nothing for granted and don't assume that you know what's there.
Right.
So, but we think we should take a walk back. Rewind.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Here we go. Once upon a time, very long ago.
Oh, yeah, very long ago, huh?
I mean, yeah, it was almost 30 years ago. So
that makes it sound old.
Wow. It'll be 30 years that we've met this year. Anyway, so Lovie and I met on a blind setup. I worked with a very good friend of his mother's. And one day out of the blue, she just came up to me and she was like, there's this guy that I want you to meet. I think you should meet. Something like that. And I was like, what? Because out of the blue, right? And so she proceeded to tell me about Lovie and what kind of person he was. He was in the military. Well, he was home from the military and, all these great things about him. And I was like, oh, no, thank you. Because I hadn't just gotten out of a bad relationship, but I did. The previous relationship was not stellar. Okay. And I was enjoying myself, living my best life at the time, hanging out with my friends. I had my nieces with me. We were just doing girl stuff. Right. So that went on for a while. She would always tell me about him. She brought him up a lot. And then one day she gave me his phone number and I was like, you got to be kidding me because I'm not calling him. I didn't know that they were trying to. Unbeknownst
to her.
Yeah.
The same thing. The mirror was doing the mirror opposite or the mirror same thing was doing the exact in my life as well. So my mom and my auntie, she was like my auntie, were doing the exact same thing. Oh, we know this beautiful girl you need to actually get to know. But I was going to school. I was working 3 jobs, going to school, pursuing a degree. And raising, I was a single parent at the time. I had legal and physical custody of our son, Kalen, since he was 2.5 months. And so I was doing the darn thing and I had no time for a relationship. And so I was given her number as well. I want to say at least on 3 separate occasions, I took her number and just threw it away.
Yeah. So, this is a thing. I had a deal breaker. And I never dated anyone who had children, right? Kalen he wasn't even a year old when they started talking about trying to hook us up. He was like maybe 6 months or so. But I was like, nope, I don't. The baby's how old? Yeah. Oh, he's not even a year. I was like, oh, where's the mom? Because like, I'm not a baby mama, baby daddy, any of that kind of, I don't want to get into any of that. So I was like, nope, if the baby's that small, that means the mom is around somewhere. And then they were like, no, he has custody, blah, blah, blah. But I just kept saying, no, thank you. No, thank you.
I know a lot of you are out there like that. Where was the mama? None of your business. No.
A non-factor.
A non-factor in another state doing other things. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Hence the legal custody.
Full legal and physical custody. So anyways.
So they tricked us. It was my Christmas party. I worked at the money store, 1995. I was getting dressed and my friend called because I was going to go with her. Right. I was going with her and her husband. And she said, hey, I just want you to know that he's going to be there. And I was like, who's he? And she said, Ernie. And I was like, who is that? She said, the guy that, Shirley's been telling you about I was like, girl, what? I was not happy about that, right? So I was like, why? Blah, 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 whatever. So I get off the phone and my 2 cousins were at my house. I was like, can you believe this? They're trying to set me up with that guy, blah, 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 whatever. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure I look extra cute so I could be like, no, thank you, you know. So we kind of laughed about it a little. I went to their house. We rode to the party together. And
so I was tricked as well. So my auntie, this is my mom's best friend, she told me that her son, who lived in Fresno, wasn't going to be able to take her to this party. And so again, I was working 3 jobs, going to school, raising a child, and I just got out of the military, so I had to move back home. I'd been on my own since I was 17 and had to move back home because I was out of the military doing all these things. I needed a break. So she asked me, and she knew I was, at my wit's end. And she asked me, hey, would you mind taking me to this party? And I thought, okay, auntie, I'll take you. It'll be fun just to get out. So I thought, corporate event, be nice to be around some professionals. Maybe I can do some networking, what have you. So we go, and as we're approaching.
So I just want to say something. And there were a couple things that were supposed to happen. Lovie just mentioned one. Her son was supposed to come down and take her to the Christmas party, and he didn't come.
Right.
Lovie was in Amway at the time. He had a meeting that he was supposed to be going to that night. That meeting was canceled. I had a friend who I was going to the party with, and they decided that they didn't want to go. So 3 things happened to make it like, it was like the sea parted for us to, you think about that, for us to, like, there were no barriers, for us to meet. So I just thought that, I was like, it was maybe fate for us to meet or whatever. So
while we're there, I'm driving her there, and she goes, oh, Rhonda's going to be there. And I'm like, oh, okay. Who's that? She said, I thought she was going to talk about a workmate and, whatever.
Well, I mean, I was a workmate.
But she was like, oh, the person I was telling you about. And I'm like, okay, who's that? And she's like, the girl I wanted you to meet. And I was like, auntie, I told you I don't want to meet anybody. Right. And so she was like, oh, but you'll really like her. She's really sweet. She's beautiful. And I'm thinking, okay, this old lady, you know how it is. They always say somebody's pretty. I'm just saying.
Or they're like, he's so nice, and okay.
They always say that,
looking
right?
Like
they come through looking like,
right.
Shaniqua, or Shanae. Come through looking like,
Right, I'm Shanae. You
Jamie Foxx with a wig.
And you brother man from the 5th floor.
Exactly. So we get there. I'm thinking, all right, you know what? No big deal. I'll talk to anybody. And again, this was an opportunity for me to get out there and do some networking.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they were there first. So we came in and I saw him. He's sitting at the table, and, they introduced us and stuff. And so Lovie, like he said, he thought about opportunity to network. So that's code for he's extrovert. He's like an extrovert. I'm more of an introvert, right? So Lovie started talking and asking me questions. And I was just like, what in the world? So I got up. I didn't just abruptly get up, but I excused myself. And I got up and I went and got my friend. She was sitting at a different table with her date. And I said, you got to come and sit at my table. And she was like, what? I said, come and sit at my table. And so she was like, why? And I was like, Shirley's trying to hook me up. She thought it was the funniest thing. So Tracy got up and brought her date, and he was just a friend, but they came and they sat down at the table with us, because I'm like, I got to talk to somebody, because Anitra was with her husband. Everybody was kind of just talking, but I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. So Lovie continued to talk to everybody like
I wasn't just talking to her.
No, he wasn't just talking to me, but he was asking me a ton of questions that I'm like,
that's just what I do. I'm trying to get to know you.
Right.
Look, let me just put it this way. When she walked up, I was thinking, okay, all I saw, you see her smile. So all I saw
Big old cheesy
were
grin.
Teeth and boobs.
He says teeth like he saw a horse or something.
No, they were just sparkling white. It was the most beautiful smile.
And then he says boobs like I was a burlesque dressed like a burlesque dancer.
She had this amazing dress that
tasteful,
was on.
Very tasteful.
It was a very tasteful dress.
Thank you. Get it together.
But she was amazing. And I could tell you, like, I was just, in the old man's vernacular, I was smitten.
I was getting ready to say smitten.
I was smitten as soon as I saw her. And to be truthful, it was almost love at first sight. Mm-hmm. I just knew, like, this girl is special. And so I just started talking. It was just, I don't know, it was just something about her. So I just kept talking and talking and talking, getting to know her, thinking, okay, she's cool. I like that, and the night went on. Little did I know that when she would get up and excuse herself and go talk to her friend, she was telling people he's a nerd. I don't know why.
No.
We would everybody thought we should get together.
I did not say that to anybody but my family. And I said it to Tracy, but I didn't go around telling everybody at the party.
Tracy
first
was
of all,
not a good source. Hold on. After the fact, Tracy told everybody that I was there and I was dressed like I was selling, like I was wearing a red bow tie, which I wasn't. I was suited and booted, but I was wearing a regular tie. Nothing against bow ties, because I have an assortment of bow ties after the fact. But I didn't have a bow tie. I didn't even own a bow tie at the time. I don't know why she thought I was wearing a bow tie.
I don't know why either to this day. She's like, I swear he had on a bow tie. But so after the event was over, which is so crazy because I remember this like it was yesterday. After the event was over, Lovie was sitting here on one side, I'm sitting on the other side, and Shirley's sitting across from the table. And so I don't know why we just sat there like we didn't know how to say bye or something. And so she says, "Did you guys exchange numbers?" And we both said no. And she looked at us like we were dumb. She goes, "Exchange numbers."
Like we're little kids.
Yeah. So he gave me his card. I gave him my card. And we said bye. So I thought that, okay, that's the end of it, right? That was Saturday night. I didn't think I was going to talk to him.
December 16th, 1996.
Yep. No, 95.
95.
I just, see. So I didn't think I was going to talk to him anymore. On Monday, I get to work Monday. She asked me, "Did he call you yet?" I said no. I was like, she is really sweating me, right? So I was like, no, I wasn't tripping though, because I didn't think that there was a match, basically. And he called me on Wednesday. And
you got to get a little space. Make him sweat it out a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Brother, anyway. But he called me Wednesday and we talked. And so I was like, you know what? I probably didn't give him a fair shake, we talked for a while. And after we talked that day, we talked the next day. And excuse me, he invited me to his grandparents' 50th anniversary celebration. And so I knew that Anitra was going. So I was like, okay, all right, I think I could go again, and in my head, I was like, let me go check him out again because he is nice. So I can see if there's like any kind of chemistry there, right?
So I got her on the phone. First, fellas, let me just tell you, you got to be smooth with how you talk to him, right? First, you got to get the eargasm. You got to get him on the phone, smooth talk him, get them wanting a little bit more. Yeah.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I was like,
and so
he is nice.
So my grandparents were having their 50th anniversary. Mm-hmm. And so when she came, I was really excited that she was going to be there. But I was also going to be wearing my tuxedo because I was the master of ceremonies for the event. And let's just say that when she saw me in my tux,
that's not how it happened.
Saw me up on the mic,
oh brother, running things.
That's all she needed. That's all she needed.
That's not how that happened, but okay. Anyway, so it was funny though because at his celebration, at their grandma and grandpa's wedding celebration, I saw a lot of my cousins, like my second, third cousins or what have you, and they're like, "Hey," they're older. I was like, "Hey, what are y'all doing here?" And they're like, "Oh, we grew up with the Butlers and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Really?" They was like, "How are you here?" I said, "Well, I was invited by at the time Ernest, because he wasn't Lovey yet." I was like, "I was invited by Ernest." They were like, "Oh, okay." So I met the whole family that day, and we went to the reception area, and he just kind of took me around and introduced me to his family. It wasn't like, it was so crazy that, I met your whole family. Like, everybody was obviously at the celebration. And that was December 23rd, right there.
Yep,
that was
December
the 23rd. So that
Do
night,
the math. That was the 16th. Now we're at the 23rd.
yeah. So let me back up though. I told you he called me Wednesday and he called me Thursday. He asked about what I was like, what my plans were for Friday. And I was like, oh, we have our Christmas program at church on Friday night. He was like, oh, okay, whatever. We could continue to talk. So I was working late because I was leaving right from work to go to the church. And my phone rang at work. And I was like, I do not feel like talking to another person or whatever. And I didn't have caller ID at the time. But it rang and it went to voicemail. So I hit the button. I'm working and I'm listening to my voicemail. It was him. He said, I was calling you just to say that, I hope that you have a great evening at your Christmas program. I hope everything goes well. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, but you're not here. I was like, that is so sweet. I just thought that was really sweet. So
Orgasm number 3. Just saying.
So we went that Saturday. I was there with Anitra again. We were going to the movies. Her and I were going to go see Waiting to Exhale. I think you were going to a different movie or something because you asked me what I was. You were going to the movie with your cousins, then. So I was like, oh, we're going to go see Waiting to Exhale. And he kind of teased me a little bit about it because it was a chick flick, whatever. So the next day, Christmas Eve, Anitra was having a Christmas party at her house. So I asked her, I said, hey, do you mind if I invite him? She's like, no, I don't care. You can invite him. That's cool. So I called you.
So she invited me and I was thinking, okay, this is cool. All right. She invited me. So turnabout's fair play. Right. But then I started thinking like, okay, what if I get over there and then we realize we got nothing in common. So I needed an out. Right. And so I think, okay, what can I do? Well, my baby sister was visiting from Spelman. She was coming home from college. So I called her up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to take you with me to this party if you're cool with it. It's just at a house, real chill. And I just need you to be my wingman. So that way, if things don't go right, I can use you as an excuse so we could bounce. And she was like, that's fine. She's like, all I ask is that you just don't leave me by myself. I said, not a problem. You'll be with me the whole time, sis. She's like, cool. As soon as we get there, I abandoned her. I introduced her to Anitra and her husband. And, I didn't know the other people that were there really, and I left her there in the living room with them. And then Snooks and I went and sat in the front room and we talked for 3 hours.
Yeah, we went to the formal area because I had my nieces with me. They were in the back playing with the girls because Anitra had 2 girls. And we went and we sat down and we talked for 3 hours.
About everything under the sun.
Yep.
I mean, it was
values, just everything, we've just so many things that we had in common.
Our parents, their divorces. Little did I know my dad was going to have a couple more.
But just, kind of what we wanted in life and what we saw, like family wise, our faith. And it was just crazy the way that the connection was. And so
it was a love connection.
So it really was. So his was love at first sight, basically. Because tell him what you said.
I did call my cousin after the whole, the party that she had, or her company party, the first time we met. And I did tell him that I found the woman I'm going to marry. So
that was the first night. It took me 8 days. And it's so funny because after that, I was just like head over heels. It was a wrap for me. And I remember I was putting my coat on and I was getting the girls and I was putting them in the car. And I said, I'm going to marry him. That's going to be my husband. Because I promise you, if he would have asked me that night, if he said, let's just get married, I would have said yes. It was just like that. And I sat there, I remember, because I had to warm my car up. I had the Nissan. I had to warm my car up. And I just sat there and the wipers were going, and I was just like, wow, I don't even know what happened. I don't know this feeling, just like, I was like, I am in love. Like, I don't love him. I am in love with him. It was a real love connection. So
it was. And we're going to speed it up because you guys are like, Okay, so how did you get stabbed?
So that
So we ended up. So that was then, right? So then, to speed things up a little
you
bit,
got to set the tone.
we continued to date, and things were great. We were just getting to know each other still, and approximately 4 months later, on her birthday,
Mm-hmm.
Kaylin and I, that's my son at the time. So we
Our son.
well, I'm just saying at the time it was my son. I'm
Okay.
saying my son and I.
Get it together.
We took her to Spaghetti Factory, and we proposed.
So Kaylin was 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was 1 year old. He was 1 year 4 months,
Yeah.
and we proposed. We had a ring and everything, and we asked her to marry us.
He said, would you do the honor of being the mother of my son and my wife? And I said, yes, obviously.
And this
And
is
so-
the woman that was like, deal breaker.
Right. So, right. So, that was a Tuesday. My birthday was on a Tuesday. And, that Sunday I went to church, and the ex-boyfriend showed up at church. Now, just a little backstory. It was like, I don't know. It's almost like, a dog sniffing around, like somebody's in my territory or whatever, because I no lie, as soon as Lovie and I got together, he started making his presence like known. He would call me every now and then and be like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, are we getting back together? I'm like, no, I already said we're not getting back together, this, that, what have you. So as soon as there was another person in the picture, then he just became like more aggressive. And I had went to file a restraining order against him that did not get honored because they said, they look at the past history at that time. I don't know how they do it now, but past history of our relationship. He wasn't abusive. He didn't hit me or anything like that. So they denied the restraining order.
She should have lied.
Well, I mean, had I known,
I know, but no.
So anyway, so he showed up at church, and he saw that I was engaged, and he lost it. And he didn't do anything at that point. But later that evening, he showed up at my house. My cousin was staying with me. He showed up at my house. Lovie was there because we had just come from his aunt's house for a birthday celebration. And I thought that he was my brother because my brother was in town. My cousin who was there also thought that it was my brother because the hall light, the porch light was off. Anyway, so she opened the door and I hear them arguing. And I was like, what the heck are they arguing about? So I go to the door.
So we were in the back bedroom when this was all going on.
Yeah. We were sitting down, we were talking. And I go up front and I'm like, what the heck is, what are they arguing about? And so as soon as I leave the bedroom, I'm walking down the hall. He comes down the hall and I see him and I'm like, oh Lord, no. And I was like, no, you got to get out of here, whatever I said. And he just pushed me. And I flew backwards into the room. I hit my head on the floor. I flew backwards.
And that was go season for me. So all I saw was Snooks coming backwards and she falls over. I think it was like a laundry basket.
Yeah, because I did laundry and I had the laundry basket.
And then she had hardwood floors. So she falls back and hits her head on the ground. Mind you, we thought it was her brother. So I'm thinking, brother or not, I turn the corner and I'm thinking it's about to go down. Like I'm thinking I'm going to fight her brother at this point. I turn the corner and mind you, I'd never met her brother. I turn the corner and I'm looking, I'm like, nah, the way this guy was standing, the stature, the stance, the whole 9 yards. And mind you, I'm only about a year removed from the service. And I'm looking, I'm like, nope. And it just something clicked and charged him. We're fighting in the middle of this hallway. It's a narrow hallway.
It's a narrow, it was an older house. It's a narrow hallway. The light was off. And
so it was a close quarters fight.
Yeah.
And so we're going at it.
And I'm trying to break him up. And I'm
and
telling
I put
my
him
cousin.
Down. Let me tell him.
No.
You're talking this podcast.
I'm sorry. You
So
said
I put him
speed it
down.
up.
So I put him down like 3 times. So every time I put him down, they pull me off of him. And then there's one time
We didn't pull you off like that.
But
You're trying to break it up.
And the last time that they pull me off of him, I feel this slap across my chest. And it was right around here.
So we got separated because I was telling her to call the police as I'm trying to break them up, and she was trying to break them up too. But so once we finally got them separated, Lovey's standing in the hallway, and he says he cut me.
And the only light that was coming in was from the porch outside.
Right. So I said, he goes, he cut me. And I was like, what? And it was like a slow motion, like in the movies. When he said he cut me, I said, what? And I turned around and I looked. He had his hands up by his ear.
The other person.
The other guy, yeah, the ex, had his hands up by his ears. And my cousin was like just going crazy, like pushing him out, trying to push him out. And when he had his hands up, I saw a knife in his hand. And then I turned back around and I turned the light on. There's blood on the floor. And Lovey said, this is from me.
And I'm standing there with my hand over, like
Holding
just to the
over-
left of my chest, to my sternum, holding it over my hand.
And I said, move your hand. And when he moved his hand, the way the blood is like, psh, psh, psh. And he's like, we got to go. We got to get to the hospital. And I think I started going in shock. I don't remember telling my cousin to call 911, but I just said to call 911. And I'm thinking, oh, I got to take him to the hospital. And I'm like, this dude is big. I can't, Anyway, so we go in the room and he was like, get his shoes. And he's
back to
like,
the bedroom.
he goes, hurry. And so I was like, okay. So then the next thing I knew, Lovey falls backwards. I jump on top of him and I put my knee in his chest, like to stop the blood from coming out. And then I hold his head up because I'm thinking medical. I don't want him to choke on his blood, right?
And I was having difficulty breathing.
So yeah, he started turning blue and he started going into convulsions. When that happened, the police officer came in. She had her gun out. And so she stood there and she looked at me and she looked at Lovey and she put her gun away. The paramedic came down the hall and he goes, we got to get to work on this guy fast. So they told me I had to leave. And I was like, no, I'm not going nowhere. And the police officer's like, no, come with me to the front so that we could, talk and stuff. And so she's trying to find out what happened. My cousin is crying and I'm just like dead calm. And I just kept looking back at the hallway like, where is he? So I see them. They're bringing Lovey out. Now the ex, he left. So they're bringing Lovey out. And they said something to him and Lovey did a thumbs up and he goes, oh, good. He's coherent. So they leave, right? So I'm standing there and I'm with my cousin. She's just frantic and they're trying to get information, trying to find out where he lives and all this stuff about the ex. And I'm just telling them what I know. And I'm just like, I need to go. And she's like, no, you can't leave yet. And I was like, I said, we need to pray. So my cousin and we started praying. Then we stopped. And then I started talking to her some more. We prayed like 3 times. And she was like, so finally she got stuff. And I was like, I need to call my mom. And so I called my mom. And at the time, my mom, she went to bed very early, but this was very late anyway. So I called my mom and I said, I woke her up. I said, Mom, I said, X came over and I said, Ernest got stabbed. And she was like, what? And I said, X came over, Ernest, and stabbed Ernest. And she said, I had to tell her 3 times. And she's like, what? She finally jumps up. And so she was like, I'm on my way. So my mom, you tell one in the family, everybody, she called my uncle, who was our pastor, and my aunts and and so she asked, by the time when they got there, because they wouldn't let me leave, because I wanted to go to the hospital, but they wouldn't let me leave till the detectives came, because they were looking for the knife, and they were like, are you sure, blah, 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 like, trying to really get our stories together, like, if what we're saying, be consistent, basically, right? So they had the whole place taped off. They're looking in the garbage cans. They're looking at the neighbor's yard. They're knocking on doors, like to see if maybe he threw the knife away. And so I'm still standing there. And so they said that I could go with my mom. And mom, she goes, did you call his mom? And when tragedy happens, you just go blank, right? I did not remember his mom's phone number. I was like, I can't remember her phone number. And so we're like, we got to get in touch with her mom. So luckily,
With his mom.
with his mom. I'm sorry. So funny thing is, remember I said that there were some of my cousins who knew them. My grandfather's first cousin was best friends with his grandmother. So we had to call cousin Louise to get Grandma Lula's phone number to get his mom's phone number. So my mom had to call his mom and tell her what happened. And his mom called his dad. And so while all this is happening, I'm standing outside. The phone rings in the house. The ex called. And the police officer says he's on the phone right now. And I'm like, give me the phone so I could, go off. My cousin had him on the phone, and they were like, keep him on the phone so that they could trace the call. So eventually they were able to trace the call, and they got him. And so we go to the hospital, we finally get to go to the hospital. We are at the trauma ward, and they tell us, we're waiting around and everything, and it's just crazy.
Let
obviously.
me interject right there. So
Okay.
the part where she says, where they wheeled me out and I gave the thumbs up, I remember the paramedics saying, okay, you need to actually, just let them know that you're okay. So I gave the thumbs up. So I remember they wheeled me out to the ambulance, and they lifted me up, and I couldn't breathe. I had a very difficult time. I thought I was having an asthma attack. And so I kept pulling my oxygen mask off my face. And the guy kept saying, you need to leave the mask on. I told him, I can't breathe. I remember saying asthma. And he says, oh, the medicine's in there, in the mask. He lied. So I remember going, oh, and I put it back on my face. And I'm sitting there. And then again, during the ride, I don't know where we were exactly in the city at the time, but during the ride, I felt as if I had to pass gas. And it was like it was a lot of gas. I felt like a big feeling. So I told him, I have to pass gas. And he says, just go ahead and do what you got to do. But when I did, I lost all bodily functions. I did number 1, I did number 2. And the last thing I remember was this guy reached up, tapped on the window. There was a little window that was right there. And he said, possible DOA. That's the last thing I remembered. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in a hospital bedroom or a hospital room. And you know how they say the bright light and all that? I'll say for a moment, I got really, really, really scared because I saw a bright light. Now, it was the fluorescent light from, the above lights in the room because you can't focus at first or whatever. And when I opened my eyes, I saw my mom.
So while they're in the hospital, we're waiting and stuff. So finally, the doctor comes out and he was like, okay, he tells us that Lovie survived, and they said that he was stabbed. He was stabbed. He goes, he was stabbed in the heart, because we didn't know at the time that it was the heart. Lovie knew, but I didn't know. He said he was stabbed in the heart. He said he was stabbed in the heart the only way a person can get stabbed in the heart and live. But he either was the left ventricle or the right one. Either one, if he would have been stabbed in the other one, he wouldn't have survived. If it was over like 1 millimeter, either way, he wouldn't have survived. So they were like, this is like a miracle. And, so they're like, so he's intubated right now. And they told us what they had to do, crack him open, and he's intubated. And so he was in ICU, and they were like, go home and come back in the morning. So we went home. I didn't sleep at all. My mom, she went back to my house, and she started cleaning the stuff up, the blood and stuff up off the floor. She's like, go to my home, go to her house. So I went to her house, and I was like a zombie for the rest of the night. I couldn't sleep or anything. So got up, went to the hospital, and I was able to see him, but he couldn't talk or anything. And
so when I woke up and saw my mom, she started crying, and because at first I was nervous because I saw the light and everything, and that freaked me out. And then I turned my head a little bit, and then I saw my mom sitting in a chair, and then she saw that I had moved, and then so she got up and she walked over, And then she just started crying. And so I'm about to cry now, hell. And so it made me start crying. And then I tried to say something and I couldn't talk because then I realized I was intubated. They had that tube all the way down my throat. And so she went and got the doctor and the nurse, and then they came in and they explained what had transpired. And when they told me that they had to crack my chest open and they did open heart surgery and all of that, I mean, I'm trying to think about what is going on. I mean, because I figure I was just with my fiance. And then, you start thinking like, what happened? And then I'm like, okay. And I was like, I was okay until I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then there's so much more that transpired afterwards. And you think that's good? Wait till you hear about all the stuff that happened afterwards. So that's how I got stabbed. And I'm telling you, as amazing and miraculous as that story was.
Well, you need to tell the second part.
There's so much more that transpired after the fact.
But about the second surgery.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? You want to give them to them now? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So while I was in the ICU recovering, I had a phenomenal nurse, and I wish I could remember her name. And I cannot.
I remember what she looks like and everything, but I can't remember her name either.
I wish I could remember her name. And she didn't like the way I was presenting because as I was in recovery, and this was over at Kaiser South Sacramento. No, I'm sorry, UC Davis.
Davis Trauma Center.
I was at UC Davis Trauma Center. And so at UC Davis, and anyway, I was in the ICU, and my chest was rising and falling, but there was a vibration. My chest would vibrate. And she said she didn't like it. So because UC Davis is a teaching institution, as the attending cardiologist would come through, he asked if I would mind if some of the residents, some of the students, would be able to come through with him so he could talk about my case and so forth. So I signed a little waiver and they brought students through. So this guy brings these students through and he has a model of a heart and he has a pencil. And he holds up this pencil and he shows him my heart and he starts talking about how, and the way that the knife went into the heart and starts talking about this. So they explained to her how the knife went into my heart the only way that it could for me to not die, and a millimeter in any direction, my heart would have exploded and all that. Nobody told me that. And my first time hearing it was when this doctor was explaining it to the residents.
You're like, what now?
And I was like, oh, right, exactly. And I'm like, wait, hold on, wait, what? And so they're explaining all this, and I'm like, what? And so I got really emotional anyway. But he tells them, I've never seen anything like this, and that, I was a very lucky person. And I correct him, said, I'm blessed. And, he's like, oh, yes, you are. And then, but he said he had never seen anything like that. Mm-hmm. So the nurse pulls him aside and says, hey, I have some concerns about the way he's presenting. And she explains her concerns about how my chest is vibrating. And God bless her. He says, well, it's consistent with the trauma. And plain as day, I'll never forget this. She says, you mean it's consistent with the trauma that you just said you've never seen before? She called him out. She called him out right there. And he got pissed and he walked off. So he leaves. This nurse went to the chief of cardiology for UC Davis and told her what she had seen. So I don't know. She must have been a veteran. I mean, she had to have been a vet and had some credibility within UCD. And she, so the chief of cardiology ordered an echocardiogram and a series of tests. And thank God he did, because when they ran the test, they had this dye that was shot into me. And what it showed was that every time my heart would beat, the reason why my chest was vibrating was because my heart was vibrating, because there was a small hole, a shunt on the backside of my heart. The knife went all the way through my heart. And every time the chamber, the left ventricle would fill, blood was shooting out the back of my heart. So if you've ever seen a balloon that had like a little pinprick in it and you put it underwater and you see the air and you squeeze it and the air is shooting out and it shows like a jet stream, that's what my heart looked like. And if it wasn't for that nurse, I would have been walking down the street and my heart would just explode. And so before I even left the ICU, I had to be scheduled for another open heart surgery for them to fix that. The challenge was, it was such a delicate operation, they had to find somebody that was willing to take on the case. And when I say God is good, God is great, because the second rated cardiothoracic surgeon in the United States just happened to be down the street at Mercy Hospital, which was like not even 10 minutes away from my house. And Dr. Slackman, I don't know where he is now, but this guy was the number 2 cardiothoracic surgeon in the United States, and he took my case. And when we sat with him, so I had to get better, and I was excused. And, I was able to leave the hospital, all that, and going through recovery. I had to get well enough to go back. And so once I was recovering, and I'm not talking about a year later. This was like a month later.
Yeah. So the initial surgery happened April 14th, and the second surgery happened June 5th. So he had to go home and basically just be well enough to where they could do the second surgery. So he was home for a few weeks. Well,
and so some of you are out there like right now thinking, well, first let me say this. When we did the consultation with Dr. Slackman and he was explaining what he was going to have to do in order to fix this shunt on the backside of my heart, my dad and my sister were with me. Rochelle, the one that I abandoned on the night that we sat and talked for 3 hours. And he explained that he was going to have to go in through the front, lift my heart up out of my chest, and work on the backside of it. And that I had a 60% chance of dying on the table. I don't know if my sister remembers this, but she was like, so what you're saying is he has a 40% chance of living. She immediately flipped it and wanted to focus on the positive. And he was like, yes, he has a 40% chance of surviving. And so we were like, well, I remember my dad and I asked him, well, what if I don't get the surgery? And then he says, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You could be walking down or up a flight of stairs or down the street doing absolutely nothing strenuous, and at some point your heart will explode. And I remember my dad going, explode? And he was like, explode, because of something will happen and you'll get too much blood in there, and basically they'll create a tear and your heart will basically explode. You have to have the surgery. And so that was the end of it. So I had to get better, and I did that. So, and you're thinking to yourself right now, those of you that are still listening, and you're saying, and you married this woman? Let me tell you why. A, I was still in love.
It wasn't my fault.
A, it wasn't her fault. B, before you can actually leave the hospital, anybody that's had a major surgery knows that you have to have a bowel movement before you leave the hospital. And so I successfully had a bowel movement, but I could not wipe myself.
And we couldn't find a nurse.
Could not find the nurse. Rang the button, hit the button, all that. She was a no-show. My fiance wiped my butt.
I did.
And I was like, she's the one. She's the one. And that's how I knew. So there's so much more to the story, but we're going to leave it there. So that's the story of how
Lovie got stabbed.
Wait till you hear the rest of the story. So you got to come back. So real quick, don't forget to go to marriedintocrazy.com. If you feel like you need a tune-up for your marriage, you need some additional coaching, somebody to talk to, we're marriage coaches. We are those individuals that we consider ourselves mentors. We've got a series of certifications behind us. We are extreme execution coaches that have been trained by Dr. Eric Thomas, but we also have level 1, level 2 training through the Gottman Institute when it comes to their couples therapy training. So go ahead, check out the website, keep coming back to the podcast, go through the catalog, listen to it. And until the next time,
be blessed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.